Do you have an interest in shamanism? Do you think you have what it takes to become one? If so, the opportunity now exists through Maestro Antenor, who is offering Westerners shamanic level dietas in his new shaman school that he's in the process of setting up at the moment. I've been working with Maestro Antenor for about 3 months now, after about 3.5 years on my own personal ayahuasca journey. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what's involved. You'll be able to contact me via the details I put up at the end of the video, to either contact me through email or through my WhatsApp number for more information. Maestro Antenor has his own land, which is in the middle of the Amazon, about 4 hours coach and boat trips from Iquitos. It's quite a trek. You might even learn to do things like this. Katawa. So it looks to be the same preparation as before. Take off the outer bark. First time, finally, in 3.5 years, I get to make ayahuasca. And just remove that bark off here, like that, as best as you can. Maestro's just blowing Napacho into his clean bottle. So we got about 1.5 liters there, a 2 litre bottle. He also offers normal level dietas, of course, for various health issues, if that's what you're also interested in. They have to run for a minimum of 2 weeks, just purely because of the logistics involved in collecting people from Iquitos, getting them by coach and boat to Hanara Herrera, and then by small motorboat to his land here. You can see what I've been through in the last 6 weeks if you watch my playlist, Antenor Dieta 1 and Antenor Dieta 2. Maestro Antenor has done a little video that I will join onto this, explaining in his own words what he's offering and how some of the process works.
Buenos días. Estoy aquí para explicar un poco sobre algunas enseñanzas de la medicina natural, como aprender medicinas, hacer un inicio de aprendizaje en cuanto a la medicina natural, para poder curar algunas enfermedades y obtener sabiduría de las plantas. Pues estoy acá para hacer una invitación y poderles ayudar de muchas formas. Si usted quiere aprender de la medicina natural, pues usted puede venir a este lugar, contactarme, lo podemos enseñar, ser maestros de medicina natural, y aprender algunos ícaros de las plantas curativas para curar diferentes enfermedades que muchas veces la ciencia médica no puede hacerlo, pero con la sabiduría de las plantas medicinales sí lo podemos hacer. Nada es imposible en la vida, todo es posible. Dependiendo disponerse a hacerlo, ¿no? Y si usted quiere aprender medicina, no hay problema, usted puede venir a la selva peruana y aprender de lo misterio que tiene la selva, de las plantas y el poder de las plantas para curar y sanar los cuerpos. Usted quiere aprender medicina, pues para inicio de aprendizaje, pues puede estar, estoy hablando de un inicio, puede estar 2 semanas y luego puede continuar 3 semanas, 4 semanas, dependiendo. Y así vas aprendiendo la medicina natural, cómo se lo prepara o cómo es el tratamiento o cómo es, se toma, cómo son las dietas importantes para aprender medicina natural. Yo le hago una invitación, amigo, amiga, si usted quiere aprender medicina, pues estamos listos acá para enseñarlos cómo es el proceso de la medicina natural. Como vuelvo a repetir, para que puedas curar algunas enfermedades y también ser protegidos por las plantas naturales, ¿no? Tenemos plantas para protección espiritual, tenemos plantas muy fuertes, muy duras acá en la selva peruana. Y también tenemos directamente otras plantas para aprender todo lo que es medicina. Con las dietas uno se obtiene el conocimiento y la sabiduría que nos da la planta para curar y tratar a los pacientes. Si usted está interesado en aprender medicina, pues usted me contactas y podemos hacerlo su dieta y enseñarlo lo que es medicina natural. Lo agradezco una vez más por su atención y si usted está interesado en aprender medicina, pues me contactas. Estamos para servirlo en cualquier momento. A bien lo agradezco por todo y bendiciones.
For my part, I will be responsible for initial video conferencing with potential clients that are interested, because it's very important, depending on what level of experience you have. If you have no experience whatsoever, then we suggest going to a retreat of your choice, but we recommend the Lighthouse Retreat, where Maestro also works as a contractor for some weeks of the year. They are very good friends of ours, and I've spent a lot of time there personally. In my view, it's the best ayahuasca retreat that you will find, because you need to have at least 3 ayahuasca ceremonies before you're ready to start on dietas, because there's a minimal amount of spiritual cleaning involved before you're ready for the plants to accept you. You have to have a certain amount of negative energy removed before the plants will be accessible to you and you accessible to the plants. I will explain more for those who are interested if you think you're up to it. It's not an easy path. It can take many years, depending on how much time and effort you put in and how much money you're prepared to spend, of course. For most people who can only come 1 or 2 times a year and do 2 to 3 week dietas, then obviously it's going to be a long road, years. I've just done 6 weeks here with only a 4-day break between dietas. There are various levels of hardship. You've got to be certain, you've got to have the right character and the means and the motivation and the dedication to be able to make the most of it. So what do you need? You need a minimal amount of Spanish. You've got to be able to talk to Maestro. It's a very different mindset, local compared to Westerners. And this is why he realizes, after we've had some conversations, that we don't think it's ever been done before, where there's been a shaman who's prepared, except in special cases, not in a school sense that's open to the public, Westerners specifically, to actually come and learn the deeper secrets of shamanistic practices, how the plant spirits work, how the Icaros work, how the ayahuasca works on dietas, the role of the shaman, the protection required to keep you safe from the dark side against the attacks of witches, hexes, attacks by demons. This is all a part of it that most people who go to ayahuasca retreats never find out anything about, because the shamans don't talk about it for obvious reasons. But this is the reality of it, and you will learn all this if you have the right mind and can ask the right questions. Maestro Antenor, obviously, for he loves his job. He's a wonderful man, absolutely great guy. He's so caring, hardworking, attentive, great sense of humor, super relaxed character. He will cater for all your needs, but it's not easy. Here in the jungle, the worst parts about it, really, for Westerners, is probably the food. The food is very bland. It's a salt-free diet in most cases. Depends on the dieta. Most of them are quite harsh, though. The trees, which is what he's really big on for protection, is what you need, because this is what is not spoken about in many retreats, the requirements for protection after you've done your ayahuasca ceremonies. He'll explain the role of the arcana, but most importantly, how to retain it, because it doesn't last if you don't meditate on it to continue that protection. And I've been to about 7 or 8 different retreats in my time, and no one's ever told me about that. I've never heard anybody tell other clients about that. They just get told, you'll have your opening ceremony on the first day, your closing ceremony on the last day, and you'll be given an arcana on the last day for protection. And everyone's quite understandably thinks, great, I'm fine, got everything I need, could just go back to my normal life and carry on. It's not that simple. Depending on how much ayahuasca you've done, if you've done a lot and you're very at a spiritually high level and you're very bright in the spiritual world, you're just like a flame for a moth. And witches can see you, and without protection they'll see that you don't have it, and also that you don't have a maestro on a permanent basis who's protecting you, and they'll just attack you. If you're a bit further down the path on dietas, where you start getting given gifts in visions in ayahuasca ceremonies, whether it's spears, bows and arrows, animal spirits as protectors, they can steal it from you. So without protection, you're vulnerable. This can lead to sickness, or much worse in some cases. So if you think you've got what it takes to handle a minimum of 2 weeks in the jungle, almost at the level that the natives would learn, being taken into account obviously that they're hardy people and they're not as fazed by mosquitoes or bugs as Westerners are, but you will have a tambo of your own. He's got the area clear where he's going to be building it shortly. I slept in the jungle last night on a camp bed with my head next to one of the trees that was on my dieta, which is part of the process. It's a test of fear, but mainly it's so that you're in close proximity to one of the trees in your dieta if you've done a multiple tree dieta, which you can do in as little as 3 days, usually a week, preferably 2. The longer you do the dieta, obviously the stronger it is. The better the connection that you'll have. Many conversations with Maestro. I've learned more from him in the last 3 months than I have in 3.5 years just going to ayahuasca retreats and doing not very good dietas with different types of shamans. There's also an inherent danger with that, as I found out the hard way, that if you mix dietas with different shamans, you can end up with your dietas misaligned, even if they're actually intact. And that's what happened to me. So I really lost out on 3.5 years of healing ability and the benefits of the dietas until I met Maestro Antenor, whose father is in the spirit world and was a very, very powerful shaman in his day. Very, very revered in this area as one of the most powerful shamans that anybody had ever known. And the information that he gave, he was the one who told Antenor that my dietas were misaligned, and that's when I had my amazing experience. When all of those dietas were aligned correctly, I had the amazing experience of just being full of that energy, and it was a crazy experience. It was wonderful. I just couldn't stop laughing. It was great. So this is another danger, and this is the type of information that you don't get given under normal circumstances as a Westerner, because within a lot of South American countries and their culture, it's secret. they don't want to tell Westerners about it. They're not keen on having many Westerners know how to become shamans. So this is an amazing opportunity if you think you're up to it. Some of the hardships, apart from the food being really bland, no salt, obviously to clear your body of as much water as possible of old water that maybe is contaminated with negative energy. All of these processes you can learn about. You'll learn the role of the Icaros. You'll have to learn them by writing them down as best as you can, which is has many words from different languages: Quechua, Shipibo, Kokama, Spanish, Castellano, because you'll have to understand their meaning so that when you sing them, you will call the plants for protection or healing that you've dieted. You will also have access to animal spirits, possibly, and the rest of the natural world through doing the plant dietas. It's a complicated process. There's a lot to learn. You've got to be very dedicated if that's what you want, if you think you can do it. Not many people can. As Maestro said himself, if it was easy, everybody would be able to do it, and they can't. They don't either have the means, the motivation, or the interest, let alone the ability to stick it out. So as far as your character goes, that's what's required. You've got to be able to stick it out, no complaints. If it's too much for you, obviously there can't be any refunds because of the overheads incurred with travel, logistics, other workers, transport, food, etc. The tools that he has to buy to clear the land, to build the malokas. He has all the knowledge required to do all of this. So he's decided that it's time for him to stop spending most of his time working at a relatively lower rate for other retreats and set himself up with his own situation, planning for a maloka in the future. So no doubt he'll also offer just standard ayahuasca ceremony retreats as well. So going back to the food situation, it gets boring. It really does. Having the same food every day: noodles, rice, boiled egg, beans, yuca, all in maybe a soup, potato, but no flavor at all. And depending on the diet, you might not be even able to have lemon with it for a bit of taste. So it gets a bit tough. And then you have the energies of the dieta itself that affect you on different days. You might feel lethargic, disinterested, just getting sick of the food, sick of the heat, sick of the cold at night, sick of the rain when it rains a lot. For most people, though, you tend to, be thinking about, oh, I can't wait to get back to the real world and get some food that I like or whatever. These are all part of it. But there can also be tests or pruebas by the plants, too. I had a very strange experience a few days ago. I told Maestro, I said, when he was away working or gone off in the jungle, I said, oh, it's a strange experience. I could smell a Chinese takeaway, cooking Chinese food. And I thought maybe it's his in-laws retreat, about 15 minutes walk away. And I thought, no, they wouldn't be cooking Chinese food. It was exactly like a Chinese restaurant, like being just outside one. Exactly like it. When I told him about it, I forgot to tell him about it. And then a couple of days later, I said, oh, yeah, this happened to me the other day. And he went, that's a prueba from the plants, giving you the smell of food, so that to see if you'll cave in and go, oh, I can't take this anymore. I just want to leave and go back to the normal world and eat normal food. You can have tests in your dreams, especially if you spend the night next to a tree. It might happen the same night or maybe a night or two later. You might get very, very vivid dreams, might not be able to understand them, but if they're very vivid, they've usually got a meaning. When you do ayahuasca on the dietas, which you will do at least 2, because you have to be opened for the start of the dieta, so the plant spirits have access to you. So you will have 2 ceremonies minimum for each dieta that you do. one to open you, one to close you. And then as you progress, little by little, in little steps each time, you get given more gifts. You might get given weapons, for example, like a spear, or a bow and arrow, or a blowpipe. All of these weapons are to help you fend off attacks by witches. This is deep level stuff. Most shamans won't talk to Westerners about this, and certainly not in ayahuasca retreats, because most people don't know that the nature of the universe is yin and yang. It's both dark and light. So of course, for the purely medicinal side that curanderos use, ayahuasca, the light side for healing, for health, for spiritual growth, is a dark side, which is accessible through books on black magic, which is what the witches are, which is what they do. They're still called shamans here, but they're not actually shamans. They're not plant spirit shamans, but they just read books on black magic because it's an easy path, because anybody can do that if they know where to look for those books, spiritualist shops, etc. And it happens all the time, unbeknownst to most pasajeros, or clients as they're known, pasajeros in retreats, because obviously from a PR perspective, ayahuasca retreats aren't going to tell you too much in most cases about the reality of both dark and light sides, and that they are both involved in ayahuasca ceremonies, both for healing, but they can also be used for malicious purposes. And very often the shamans in ayahuasca ceremonies come under attack at the same time they're actually doing the ceremonies with the clients. All of this stuff, isn't generally known about, especially for people who've only, had a couple of ayahuasca experiences. They just don't know. And as far as I'm aware, not that I've looked particularly, but I'm the only person whose channel has spoken about this stuff, because I've happened to have just, without planning it too much, I just logged most of my ayahuasca experience over the last 3.5 years. Because I've now, Sunday night tomorrow, February tomorrow, which will be the 23rd of February 2025, I'll be on my 99th ayahuasca ceremony. But I've had experience of about 22 different shamans in 4 different countries. So I've learned quite a lot. And I've learned the hard way, because I've had some of these bad things happen to me. I've had hexes put on me. I've been attacked by witches. I've dealt with corrupt shamans who've used forms of mind control to try and extract more money out of you. It can be, and unless you're prepared to face that, you've got to be spiritually strong and prepared to face the risks that go with it. But if it's done correctly, there won't be any, because Maestro Antenor will be protecting you, and he will be training you properly as he was trained by his father, in the way it's done for the locals. Won't be quite as hard as what the locals go through, as I said before, because you will be in an isolated tambo about 100 meters from here. I slept there last night, very close to the area. And when that tambo is built, it'll just be one at first. And it'll also depend on what other work he has for other retreats as he gets this project off the ground. So, if you think you're up to it, then you can contact me. I'll put my email up here or wherever on the screen when I edit the video, as well as a WhatsApp QR code so that you can contact me, especially obviously for Westerners who speak English. If you speak Spanish already, then that's fine. I can just put you through straight to Maestro Antenor to deal with directly, because you speak Spanish or understand enough Spanish to be able to deal directly with him. But for those who can't, or are at a basic level like me, then I will contact, you can contact me. We'll arrange a time. If you contact me via email or WhatsApp, we'll arrange a time where I can do a video interview with you. I can send you appropriate medical paperwork, like every good retreat should, because the other important thing is about your medical and psychological history, because there are aspects of ayahuasca that are contraindicative for probably the most serious is people who have had mental health issues and have suffered depression and are on antidepressants, because you have to be clear of those for at least 3 months because of the chemistry involved in the tablets, because Mama Ayahuasca will want to repair any incorrect brain chemistry that's caused these problems, whether it's through negative energy, but most that comes through, in most cases, through childhood or teenage trauma of some kind, or maybe adult trauma, depending on the nature of it, that maybe generate a particular level of complex post-traumatic stress disorder that makes people depressed and have the need to go on antidepressants in the first place. So that's probably the most important thing to know. Other conditions such as bipolar disorder or schizophrenia are not palatable to be healed by ayahuasca, unfortunately, and it's very important that you're honest so that the information can be referred to the shaman, so at least he has an expectation. It won't affect what happens in the ayahuasca ceremonies as far as his particular treatment of that. It's just good to know, to get an idea before the person comes, of if they've suffered a particular level of trauma, what kind of other infections, spiritual infections, may have come because of that trauma, so that there aren't any surprises in ceremony with particular types of behavior that's associated with those types of spiritual infections. Obviously, if it's just physical accidents and stuff, that can be taken into account. Addictions, particularly, are very readily dealt with various plant dietas. Maestro particularly likes Uchisanango for 2 weeks to heal any addiction, whether it's alcohol, drugs, others, cigarettes, whatever. So anyway, if you really are interested, so it's not just at the shamanic level though. I mean, that's probably, we don't expect to have too many people that would be interested in that kind of commitment for the period of time that it would take, depending on how much time that you have available to be able to do continuous dietas as best as possible. But in the best case scenario, which his father did with a particular friend who was local, so he had a lot of advantages. Obviously, he knew about all the plants already. He would have known as a native, been perfectly at home in the jungle. But he took him from zero to shaman, basic level, actual functioning shaman who could hold his own ceremonies in 6 months. But that was solid, almost continuous dietas for 6 months with his father. So for most people, it will take years, depending on how much time you've got available and how much time and effort you're prepared to put into it. Meditating on the plants when you're not actually on the dietas, to continue the connection with the plants so that they don't lose interest in you and fade away because they just think, oh, he or she isn't interested. It's very important to keep these routines as part of your daily routine, meditating on the plants, say for 10 minutes in the morning. If you've done trees, for example, for protection, to retain that protection first thing in the morning, before you go to work, whatever, you have to meditate on the plants to keep them connected to you. Same for the arcana, which is what you're not told in retreats. I never was. So there's all of these things that you will learn when you have a maestro that's as good as Maestro Antenor.